Cafe. Anyway.
Mike's Daily Podcast.
Welcome to FF episode 2314, 2314. And it's Mike Matthews counting numbers.
Mike's Daily Podcast.
And the lad pops blob. I had another language at the beginning of this song. And I hope you think it's not a very long song because it just ended. Why is the music still going? I thought this was going to be a short song. It ended up being epically long. Sort of like a Freebird-esque
Mike's Daily Podcast
type tune. But I think we've pretty much summed it all up. It's Mike Matthews here at Cafe.
Mike's
Anyway,
Daily
located somewhere in Podcaster Valley.
Yeah!
Podcaster Valley, the last place on earth. And I am here today because you said, Mike, your podcast is daily. And I said, yes. And you said, well, then why isn't it? And I said, well, I get interrupted. And here we are now. I'm back. But I did want to say, this is something that somebody said this to me. And I was, oh, yeah. So electric cars, if you would mind me just throwing out the words electric cars, which I don't own an electric car. They are kind of a nemesis these days, even though, oh yeah, we want to live in the future. We want to have electric cars. Way back when, the only thing that was electric and was a car was those little golf carts that would zip around. Sometimes you'd see them at resorts, at big hotels, people driving around on them. Which, by the way, isn't that interesting when you watch an old TV show from the 70s and they're calling somebody on a cellular phone? Really? They had those back then? Yeah, they were as big as a house. But if you watch McMillan and Wife, which my dad worked on ages ago, he was a stand-in for Rock Hudson, and he would tell me about...
And here's today's podcast picture.
He would get a stipend. The Universal was the company that made McMillan and Wife. He'd get a stipend. Hey, here's a lot of money, and you can spend it on a nice hotel room. And he would stay in like a little cheap Motel 6 or something, and he'd pocket the rest of the money. And that's how it was being a stand-in for Rock Hudson back in the day. And he apparently, there was a couple of times the director of the series would throw him on in an actual episode. Oh yeah, the podcast picture today is of Basil the Boxer. Yes, the late great Basil the Boxer. About 3 years ago, he and I and my lovely lady friend, we went to Mendocino, and I think this is actually called Portuguese Beach. And we got this really nice picture of him, and he was having a lot of fun walking up and down the coast. And his legs were starting to get really wobbly then, but he was making the best of it. We were having a great time. What a wonderful trip that was. 3 years ago. You know, I'm already thinking it's October, but it is not. I am excited because a week from tomorrow, I am off to Florida to see my mom. Speaking of 3 years, it's been that long since I've seen her, so I'm looking forward to seeing her. And then my lovely lady friend and I are going to see some of her relatives. But yes, once upon a time, big, huge cell phones and electric cars. Electric cars were the only little ones zooming around the golf courses, and you'd see them out on the football fields and that kind of thing. Now you can drive an electric car. Oh, and Elon Musk, apparently the most rich person in the world, is something today that just came out. So electric cars, the current president, the current administration wants to make it so that the fossil fuel fed cars will disappear eventually, and everyone will be driving electric cars. As of now, I had not heard this statistic, though, that if everybody had an electric car now, we would only have enough electricity to power 25% of those cars. that's our infrastructure for electricity is not so good. And you can definitely tell that in the Bay Area. I live in a neighborhood where one day I suddenly realized, hey, there are 2 Teslas on this block. There are 2 Teslas charging. A couple days later, all of a sudden we have a power outage because there's all that electric current being pulled on these new vehicles. So are we going to, at some point, be able to build the infrastructure to allow for all these electric cars? I hope so. I mean, I want a great environment, a clean environment. We talked about that with the whole plastics thing in the past couple FF episodes. But yeah, it's gonna take a lot of work and a lot of money. So we shall see. We'll explore this topic in the future and see how we're doing. But when America first went into lockdown to battle the coronavirus, many believed it would be over and we'd be back to normal. Check this out. Once the summer hit, do you remember that a year ago? Once the summer hit, we would be back to normal life. And at that point, the numbers weren't surging as bad. It wasn't so horrific. And then all of a sudden, you remember at the end of the year in October, around this time a year ago, the COVID numbers were starting to surge. I remember because my lovely lady friend and I, for my birthday, we were going to stay somewhere in Napa Valley, and the COVID numbers, people with COVID, those numbers were shooting up, and we had to cancel because of that. I mean, it was bad. It would, and not so much of just being afraid of catching COVID, but also the hotel we were going to stay at, they were restricting a bunch of stuff, a lot of services they would offer. Usually they scaled back because they didn't want people passing around the disease. But when we thought summer would hit and everything would be fine, as we go outside a cafe anyway, where we bring you Mike's Daily Podcast somewhere in Podcastro Valley, the last place on earth, we didn't know it would continue into the new year, into the spring. It's still going on, still piling additional stress. Recovering from shared trauma may be a long road, but there is one tool that can help us through all stages of the journey. And Julie Potiker, she is the author of Life Falls Apart, But You Don't Have to, Mindful Methods for Life. She is a mindfulness expert. She has said that the cure for all this trauma is mindfulness, the practice of becoming a focused, non-judgmental observer of anything. This simple tool can help manage pandemic-induced stress. Possible effects of mindfulness practice include modest improvements in depression and anxiety and pain relief. And you don't have to be an expert to be experiencing benefits. You just have to keep practicing. The exercises that Julie prescribes is try mindfulness meditation. Look for a guided mindfulness meditations offered online through podcasts or other presentations. She says she enjoys the free Insight Timer app and the Calm app. You can decide how much to devote, from 1 minute up to more than 30 minutes. Mix it up so your mind relaxes into the practice. Be mindful of the joy in your life. Even in a pandemic, joy finds a way. Notice what brings you joy, even for just a few minutes, and allow yourself to mindfully focus on those feelings when they happen. Take a few breaths to absorb them and enrich that that positive mental state of joyfulness. What fires together, wires together, she says. And this came from the Costco connection because they give it to me. They mail it to me. And sometimes I find interesting little things in there. Mindfulness, I don't really practice it. I'm not a meditator. The closest I get to meditation is when I'm waking up in the morning and I have some time and I'm not falling asleep again, or let's say I am trying to fall asleep and I'm just laying there awake, and I'll just focus on some things that I haven't focused on in a long time, like something from the past, or trying to focus on positive things. That tip does sound pretty reasonable. But also mindful eating. When you're eating something and you're just rushing through it and plowing through it and just blah, 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 shoving it in your mouth and consuming it, but not really enjoying it and being mindful of all the flavors and the tastes and the textures in your food. I tried doing that. Eating slowly. All the experts say that's incredibly important in trying to help you eat less and to eat better. But that is a little bit of that interesting article that I pulled out of Costco Connection, where I try to buy healthy stuff. I stay away from all that. They have the It's It There, which is a Bay Area dessert. It's like a ice cream sandwich. I try to stick with the healthy stuff. Oh, wait, hold on.
Later that day.
You know, what's interesting is that sometimes I work from home because my job, this is how I find out what's going on. I'm a manager, but I get to manage people this is how I manage. It's not because I got little cameras hidden at work and I'm managing the people that work for me. No, all I got to do is turn on the radio and I hear how they're doing. And part of my team, he's doing pretty good today. So good job out to him. Just checking something. Okay, here at Cafe Anyway outside, and covering that and being mindful of the achievements of other people. And look who's here. Hello, my commercial, it's Madame Rootabega, and yes, I love to be a person inside of the world that's eating lots of grapes. Oh, I have no idea how that sentence even came to be. Yes, grapes are good and delicious. Not sure why we're talking about grapes. Is this suddenly a wine admirers connoisseur podcast? Do you like wine? Yes. Do you like cheese? Yes. Do you like those little wicker baskets that you put wine and cheese and crackers in? No. Yeah, those are kind of scary. Look who else is here.
Hello there, Mike. This is Valentino, the Burger King attendant.
And this is Bison Bentley. Do you know that?
Mike, we was noticing that there's this guy who does like a national radio show there. And he is on the video as well on like the YouTube and stuff. And I noticed, Mike, that when he talks on the microphone, he's really, really far away from it there.
Yeah, far away. Do you know that? Yes. I think I know which guy you're talking about. And the microphone, to give you an idea, okay, right now my mouth is probably 2-3 inches away from the microphone. And, you know, most DJs that you see are pretty close to the microphone. These days, the way they make microphones, they make them pretty sensitive. But still, the more sensitive you make them, even if you like being far away from the microphone, it's still going to pick up the sound that's not only coming from your mouth, but also the sounds coming from around the room, if it's that sensitive. Now, some people have those little mics like Janet Jackson used to have, control, where they're right by your mouth the whole time. The video that Valentino is referring to, the Valentino video, if you will, does not, in fact, that guy, no, he was really far away from the mic. It's as if the microphone was getting in his way. He was more interested in the video that he was putting out. So I would like to say, if you're a national talk show host, which I guess I am because I'm on a podcast, it's not on the radio anywhere. I mean, it is a daily radio show. Oh, heck, that's what I have at the top of the webpage, isn't it? Mike Matthews and his daily radio show. And do you know why that is? As we peel back the curtain here a little bit, is when I first, and that has been my slogan since I think the beginning of this podcast. People didn't know what the heck a podcast was. Still a lot of people don't. So if I threw in the word radio, because it does have elements of radio in it, I'm talking to you. In the old theater of the mind days, you'd have sound effects like birds and lots of birds. And we have a lot of birds here at Cafe anyway. That kind of thing. That's very radio-esque. So I threw all that in there. Anyway, be closer to your microphone, folks, if you're going to be a national radio talk show host. And next show, it'll be the wonderful Chely Shoehart, Floyd the Floorman, John Deere the engineer. If you'd like to chime in about anything we covered, you can call Cafe Anyway now and leave your comment or not so comment at 336MM Daily. If it's not that's fine. Just give us your comment. 336MM Daily, that's 3 plus 3 equals 6. 8 plus 8 equals 16. Wait, how do I usually do this? I'm all stumped today. 3 plus 3 equals 6. MM is in Mike Matthews. Daily isn't what this podcast is. Please save me a frame.
Mike's Daily Podcast is written and produced and performed by Mike Matthews. His podcast is super easy to find. Download or listen to his show and read his blog at mikesdailypodcast.com. Email Mike now at mikesdailypodcast@gmail.com. See you tomorrow. Bye!